Borneo is not just a stretch of land surrounded by warm seas. It is not merely a dot on maps or a name repeated in school atlases. Borneo is, above all, a breath. A colossal organism that inhales moisture and exhales clouds, that transforms light into leaves and leaves into the future. From afar, it looks like a green stain suspended in tropical waters. From within it, it is a universe beyond compare. Here, the jungle doesn't cover the territory. The jungle is the territory. When dawn touches the island, it doesn't arrive all at once. The light descends in layers, as if asking permission. First, the highest treetops are illuminated, then the middle branches, and finally, only for brief moments, the dark ground receives a sliver of sunlight. This daily process reminds us that in Borneo, light is a visitor, not an owner. The true sovereign is the foliage. Scientists say these forests are tens of millions of years old, but that figure is too cold to describe what it feels like to walk among trunks that were already ancient when the first humans were learning to make fire. Each tree seems to carry a timeline longer than any empire. Time here doesn't move forward, it accumulates. Humidity dominates the air like a physical presence. It clings to the skin, fogs glasses, and makes steps heavy. It's not a nuisance, it's the language of the place. Without that humidity, the green machinery would grind to a halt. The fungi would fall silent, the insects would lose their rhythm, and the rivers would forget their color. In Borneo, to breathe is to swim. Rivers don't cut through the jungle, they weave it. Their sediment-laden waters flow down from hidden mountains and carve their way through giant roots. They carry seeds, drag logs, and connect human villages with crocodile territories. Every bend holds a secret that no one has yet finished telling. The river is memory in motion. Above this liquid world rise the dipterocarps, the island's true biological skyscrapers. They exceed 60 meters in height and support, in a single canopy, more life forms than many entire countries. Birds, insects, tiny mammals, invisible orchids, all share the same roof. A tree here is a vertical city. The Borneo rainforest is not a single forest, but many overlapping ones. The high canopy is the realm of the wind and glistening fruits. The middle level is a labyrinth of vines where every inch of space is negotiated. Below, in the gloom, fungi manage death to transform it into a new beginning. Life is organized by flaws like an architecture without blueprints. In this place, survival isn't decided by brute force. Muscle is of little use without memory. Remembering which tree will bear fruit in which month, which river becomes dangerous after rain, which shadow signals a predator. That knowledge is worth more than any claw. Intelligence is a refuge. The sounds of the forest form a complete language. The sharp thud of a falling fruit, the distant whistle of a hornbill, the almost imperceptible crunch of footsteps on old leaves. Nothing is random noise. Everything is information traveling between tree trunks. Those who don't know how to listen disappear. Borneo has been isolated enough to invent creatures that seem like the dreams of an imaginative biologist. Primates with impossible noses, mammals that fly without being birds, reptiles that seem sculpted by water. The island is a workshop where evolution experimented with audacious forms. Here, the strange is the norm. The heat, however, imposes harsh rules. Decomposition is as swift as a hungry animal. A leaf that falls at dawn can be dust by nightfall. Nothing remains untouched for too long. The rainforest recycles with the same passion with which it creates. Dying is a brief process. When the rains arrive, the landscape transforms. Roads become temporary rivers, insects multiply their song, and the scent of wet earth permeates every corner. Storms are not interruptions, they are the heartbeat of the system. Water is the lifeblood of the forest. Between isolated mountains and endless swamps, each species chose its strategy. Some opted for altitude, others for night, others for perfect camouflage. No one here can afford to repeat the same mistake. Borneo teaches with harshness. The people who inhabited the island learned that lesson. Their houses were built on stilts, their canoes followed the curves of the rivers, their myths spoke of animal-shaped spirits. Their culture grew by imitating the jungle. The man became a student. But even for its earliest inhabitants, Borneo remains an enigma. Vast stretches of land have never been trodden by human feet. There are valleys where no map matches reality, and caves that hold paintings older than the pyramids. The island knows how to hide. At the center of this scenario appears the figure that best summarizes its character. A slow-moving primate with a deep gaze and hands capable of building shelters high in the trees. The orangutan seems to be made of the same stuff as the trees. It is both a relative and a symbol. However, before getting to know him, it's necessary to understand the fabric that sustains him. No being in Borneo lives in isolation. The fruit that feeds the monkey was pollinated by a bat, whose existence depends on a tree that grew thanks to the excrement of a bird. Life works in a chain. Diptera releases seeds in almost ceremonial events that occur every few years. When this happens, the entire rainforest shifts its rhythm. Animals move, territories are redrawn, and even predators modify their routes. A tree can alter destiny. Night brings another universe. Eyes widen, colors fade, and hearing takes over. Silent predators stalk through the branches, while luminous insects write fleeting messages in the darkness. The forest never sleeps. Borneo is also a land of contrasts. Where the ground seems firm, a deep swamp often lies hidden. Where the river appears calm, a whirlpool awaits. The island rewards prudence and punishes arrogance. Nothing is exactly what it seems. Over millions of years, this system learned to self-regulate. Species balanced one another, diseases reached natural limits, and fruit cycles prevented prolonged famine. Harmony is not peace, it is permanent negotiation. However, fragility has always been present. An unusual fire, a prolonged drought, or external intervention can unleash changes that take centuries to correct. Borneo is strong, but not invincible. Even giants bleed. The first-time visitor feels a mixture of awe and respect. The jungle doesn't try to please. It reveals itself as it is, excessive, humid, complex. It demands attention like a stern teacher. Whoever enters accepts its rules. On this journey we are embarking on, we will explore their diverse faces. We will see the orangutan defy gravity, the proboscis monkey master the rivers, the tarsier hunt in miniature, and the hornbill hold up the sky with its beak. Each creature will tell a part. But before we go any further, it's important to remember something essential. Borneo is not a backdrop for documentaries. It is a living entity composed of millions of living beings. Everything that happens here will have repercussions far beyond its shores. The island breathes for the world. With that idea, we opened the door to the story. We have described the setting, listened to its breathing, and learned its first rules. Now is the time to get closer to its inhabitants, to look at the forest through their eyes. The story has only just begun. In the next part, we'll enter the canopy to follow in the orangutan's footsteps, understand its memory of fruits and its strategic solitude. We'll also meet the birds that hold the treetops together and the rivers that dictate the pulse of life. Borneo is waiting for us. High in Borneo, where the ground ceases to be a reference point and the world becomes a tapestry of branches, lives an animal that seems to have made a pact with gravity. It doesn't run, it doesn't leap with haste, it doesn't compete for speed. It moves as if it knows a secret shortcut through the trees. The orangutan. It's not just a big primate, it's a philosophy with arms. From below, her silhouette blends into the foliage, an orange lock of hair, a slow sway, a pause that seems meditative. But each of those gestures is the result of an ancient calculation. The orangutan doesn't improvise, it manages energy like someone guarding a treasure. In Borneo, getting around is expensive, and he knows that better than anyone. Its arms are disproportionate to the human eye. They reach distances that no other primate can navigate with such grace. It doesn't climb, it converses with the branches. It tests them, weighs them, accepts them, or rejects them. The canopy is its native language. Adult males can weigh over 90 kilos, but their weight is no obstacle. The jungle has taught them to distribute it like an architect distributes loads. Every movement is a lesson in biological engineering. Walking on air requires method. Many live in solitude, but it's not cold isolation. It's a functional solitude designed by a forest where the fruits appear and disappear like capricious coins. Competing too closely would be a mistake. The orangutan chose silence so as not to argue with scarcity. His diet is a living calendar. He knows the trees like a librarian knows their books. He remembers which fig tree will ripen in October, which vine will bloom after the rain, which bark can save him in a dry season. His memory is an edible map. When it finds a bountiful tree, time slows down. It settles in, eats patiently, and drops seeds that others will gather. Unwittingly, it becomes a gardener of the future. Every bite is a seed. The females bear the most delicate part of this story. They raise their young for years, sometimes more than 5, teaching them to read the jungle. They show them how to build nests of leaves, how to choose a safe path, how to be wary of the ground. Being an orangutan is something you learn. The night nest is an ephemeral structure. In minutes, they fold branches and create a suspended mattress where they will sleep far from predators. At dawn, they abandon it like someone discarding a thought already used up. The architecture here lasts one night. They rarely descend to the ground. Below, the world is unpredictable. There are leeches, treacherous roots, and invisible predators. The orangutan belongs to the heights like a fish to water. The apartment is someone else's territory. However, the jungle doesn't revolve solely around them. Above their heads pass shadows with curved beaks and powerful wings. Hornbills, large fruit-eating birds, connect distant trees like messengers of the wind. Heaven also sows. The hornbill's flight is not light. It produces a deep rumble that announces its arrival long before it is seen. Its enormous beak, crowned by a bony helmet, looks like a tool from another time. He's an architect with feathers. Borneo is home to several species of hornbills, each playing a distinct role in the ecosystem. They feed on large fruits that others cannot swallow and transport seeds for miles around. Where a hornbill flies, the forest multiplies. Their breeding method borders on the extraordinary. The female encloses herself inside a hollow log and seals the entrance, leaving only a small opening. For weeks she will depend on the male, who brings her food like a tireless messenger. The family fits in one hole. This strategy reduces predator attacks and turns the tree into a fortress. When the chicks grow up, they break through the wall and the world opens up again. The entire forest has been waiting for this moment. Raising children is a collective act. Hornbills and orangutans share a common fate. They depend on an abundance of fruit. When the dipterocarps enter mastification, that irregular seed-laying frenzy, the entire canopy changes its mood. The jungle celebrates and becomes chaotic. Orangutans travel more, hornbills lengthen their roots, and wild boars climb from the ground. For weeks it seems as if the forest has opened its secret reserves. Prosperity is also chaotic, but abundance is never permanent. After the feast comes austerity, and each species must remember how to survive with less. The orangutan chews bark, the hornbill hunts for insects. Luxury doesn't last long in Borneo. An invisible web is woven among the branches. A fallen fruit feeds a deer. The deer attracts a predator. The predator leaves behind remains that fertilize a young tree. Nothing happens in isolation. The jungle is a contract without signatures. The canopy, seen up close, is a turbulent sea. Vines hang like ropes. Orchids seem almost unreal. Ants guard tiny territories. Up there, life is vertical. Every meter has an owner. The orangutans observe this commotion with ancient calm. They don't need to master everything, only understand enough to move without losing their balance. Their strategy is modesty, to live without making noise. Sometimes 2 adult males meet and the air changes its taste. They inflate their face bags and emit deep calls that travel for miles. They're not looking for a fight, they're trying to warn. The voice prevents war. Those deep calls are like acoustic beacons. They signal each other's location and reduce dangerous encounters. In a dense forest, knowing the other's position is a form of courtesy. Respect is also biological. The young hear everything. They learn that the world is not conquered, it is negotiated. They watch their mothers choose safe routes, discard bitter fruit, and recognize storm clouds. Education happens without classrooms. Meanwhile, the hornbills continue their aerial work. They swallow fruit, fly, and return it as seeds ready to germinate. They are gardeners who don't know their craft. The forest uses them with affection. Beneath this constant movement, young trees grow that will one day support other orangutans. The cycle takes decades, but no one is in a hurry. In Borneo, the clock is made of plants. The future has roots. Not everything is harmonious. Storms knock down branches, droughts diminish harvests, lightning strikes scar the trunks. The canopy is a beautiful and fragile realm. Even greatness trembles. The orangutan senses these changes before anyone else. It adjusts its routes, modifies its schedule, and becomes quieter. Its intelligence is a form of humility. Adapt to remain the same. Hornbills, on the other hand, need old trees to nest in. Without deep cavities, their strategy falls apart. They depend on mature forests, not young plantations. Age is also an asset. That's why the fate of these creatures is tied to that of the dipterocarps and the rivers that feed them. If one falls, they all feel the tremor. Borneo functions as a body. As evening falls, the canopy becomes a shadow theatre. Orangutans prepare nests, hornbills seek roosts, insects turn on their chemical lamps. The day bids farewell in unison. From below, this suspended universe is barely discernible. The ground seems like another planet, but above, life continues with its own rules. 2 worlds, 1 forest. We've seen the tranquil giants and the architect birds. But Borneo doesn't end at the top. Along the rivers await primates with impossible faces and unexpected swimmers. The story descends into the water. In the next part, we will follow the course of the rivers to find the proboscis monkey, lord of the banks, and understand how the jungle converses with the current. The journey continues downstream. The rivers of Borneo don't just flow through the rainforest, they tell its story. Each meander is a sentence, each eddy a comma, each flood a turning of the chapter. From the inland mountains they descend like mud serpents laden with plant stories. They don't divide territories, they connect them. They aren't borders, they are arteries. On this island, water writes the map. Anyone approaching a riverbank for the first time understands that the forest changes its character. The smell is saltier, the soil softer, the air more filled with insects that seem to be learning to swim. The roots become black fingers that drink directly from the riverbed. The jungle learns to be amphibious. Here live creatures that didn't choose between 2 worlds. They learned to negotiate with both. Among mangroves, riverside fig trees, and spongy trunk trees appears an impossible primate, a face that seems sculpted by the irony of evolution, the proboscis monkey. Its silhouette is unmistakable. Robust body, round belly, copper-colored fur washed by the humidity, and above all that long, flexible nose that hangs like a personal flag. Many laugh when they see it for the first time. The forest, however, takes it very seriously. Form is never arbitrary. That nose functions like an acoustic instrument. It amplifies calls, modifies resonances, and allows a male to announce himself hundreds of meters away through thick foliage. In an environment where visibility is limited, being heard is a vital strategy. Sound travels better than sight. The groups are organized around a dominant male. Several females and offspring accompany him on movements that follow the flow of the river. It is not a quiet family. It is a community that argues, reconciles, touches, and watches over one another. Sociability here is a technology. Their diet defies chemistry. They prefer young leaves, still green fruits, and seeds with defenses that would sicken other mammals. To digest them, they possess a compartmentalized stomach, an internal fermentation factory. Eating is an act of engineering. That's why the proboscis monkey lives at a different pace. After feeding, it sits down, ruminates, and lets the microbes do the work for it. Haste would be a metabolic error. Patience is also digestible, but what truly sets them apart is their relationship with water. When the group needs to cross a channel, the individuals plunge in fearlessly. They swim with style, using webbed feet that few primates possess. Borneo invented monkeys with the soul of a fish. They can remain submerged for more than 30 seconds, move against gentle currents, and emerge among roots as if the river were an extension of the forest. Water ceases to be an obstacle and becomes a shortcut. That skill was born of a constant threat. In the same waters patrols the saltwater crocodile, heir to ancient times, a predator that learned to wait rather than to chase. The river holds ancient mouths. Proboscis monkeys read the smallest signs, a circle of bubbles, a tree trunk moving against logic, a silence too clear of birds. Their survival depends on this reading. Attention is an invisible organ. During the dry season, when the water level drops and tender leaves become scarce, the groups concentrate in increasingly narrow bands. Hierarchies become more rigid and nasal voices become more frequent. Scarcity sharpens politics. The young crocodiles observe everything with serious eyes. They learn to gauge the strength of a current, to choose branches that won't betray them, to distinguish between a real crocodile and an innocent log. Childhood is a risk manual. The orange fur seems to glow at sunset. The bodies are silhouetted against the water like figures from another time. They move with apparent clumsiness, but every gesture is calculated. Elegance here is functional. Beneath the surface, another story unfolds. Catfish stir the mud with tactile whiskers, dark-shelled turtles cautiously poke their heads out, and aquatic snakes draw liquid letters. The river has its own cast. The annual floods rewrite the landscape. Entire areas become temporary lagoons, insects open ephemeral airports, and trees learn to breathe through aerial roots. Borneo floods without drowning. Proboscis monkeys adjust their personal geography to this calendar. They climb to higher treetops when the water rises, descend when it recedes, and use the riverbed as a seasonal highway. Mobility is their religion. Alongside them thrive sensitive whiskered otters, kingfishers that fall like blue arrows, and monitor lizards that look like fragments of a scattered dragon. Each species writes a verse. The crocodile, however, has the final say. Its eyes barely emerge like tiny islands. For it, a distracted monkey is a simple equation. Waiting is also offensive, that pressure-shaped collective behavior. They prefer to travel at dawn and dusk when the light blurs shapes. They choose familiar routes that have already proven safe. Tradition reduces error. The people who navigate these rivers know this dance well. The fishermen read the monkeys like they read the weather. If the group is restless, something big is stirring beneath the surface. Nature speaks through gestures. But the shoreline is not only a threat, it is a generous larder. Water fig trees offer sweet fruit, mangroves provide leaves rich in salts, and mud heals wounds. The edge feeds and tests. As night falls, the groups seek out tall trees to sleep in. From above, they watch the moon's reflection doubling the sky. The crocodiles become thick shadows. Sleeping is a pact with risk. The proboscis monkey embodies the bridge between two kingdoms. Without it, many seeds would not travel. Without its vigilance, predators would have a perpetual feast. It is a hinge with a heartbeat. Their existence reveals a greater law. No habitat is pure. The forest needs water, and both need the animals that link them. The border is a misunderstanding. We have followed the river's course and met its improbable-nosed lords. But further inland, where the current becomes a whisper and the land reclaims its dominion, another Borneo awaits. The night sets the stage. There, creatures with enormous eyes and impossible leaps rule. The tarsier, a small hunter of surgical precision, waits among thin branches like a dark pansy. History fades into shadow. Before entering that realm, it's worth taking another look at the water. Understanding that each drop connects mountains with mangroves, orangutans with fish, men with myths. The river does not end at the sea, it continues into the jungle. Borneo is best understood from its shores. Those who ignore the pulse of the water will never understand the character of the forest. Here, everything learns to swim in some way, even ideas. With this lesson, we conclude the chapter on the amphibian world. We've seen how evolution sculpted a primate that speaks with its nose and swims with its hands. Now we must explore the shadows. The next part will take place at night. We will follow the tarsier among the vines, listen to the civets, and feel the footsteps of the clouded leopard. The forest has a face for every hour. Borneo still holds voices. When the sun sets in Borneo, the jungle doesn't go to sleep. It transforms. What was green during the day turns bluish-black. The leaves cease to be shelter and become a curtain. The sounds change hands, and the forest adopts a different breath, slower, wetter, more attentive. Night is not the absence of light, it's a different language. In this new language, creatures that the day barely suspects rule, eyes that seem like private moons, ears that hear the heartbeat of an insect, and legs capable of leaping between branches as thin as threads. The first to speak is the tarsier. Small, almost fragile at first glance, it remains motionless on a branch like a suspended idea. Its disproportionately large eyes occupy a large part of its face, two biological telescopes pointed toward the immediate future. The tarsier doesn't look, it calculates. It measures just over 10 centimeters and weighs less than a handful of wet leaves. However, within that tiny body lives one of the most precise hunters in the tropics. Greatness doesn't need size. Its head can rotate almost 270 degrees. It doesn't need to move its torso to survey the entire world. It's a periscope with a warm heart. Stillness is its camouflage. When it decides to act, the forest seems to hold its breath, its hind legs, elongated like springs, tense silently. A distracted insect becomes its destination. The jump writes a perfect line. It can cover distances 40 times its own body length. It lands with slender hands that act like instant cages. The prey barely understands what has happened. Speed is also music. The tarsier is a strict carnivore, a rarity among primates. It feeds on crickets, small lizards, and sometimes tiny birds. Each capture is a miniature surgical operation. Hunting is solving a problem. During the day, it hides in hollow tree trunks or dense vines. There it waits for the light to fade and for the world's turn to change hands. Patience keeps him alive. They live in pairs or small family groups. They communicate with high-pitched sounds, many of them beyond the human range. They speak at frequencies that predators cannot understand. Discretion has its own tone. The young are born with their eyes open, as if they knew that vigilance brooks no delay. They cling to branches from the first hours and quickly learn to trust in the void. Growing up is about learning to be liked. The tarsier reveals a secret of Borneo. The night is not chaotic. It has strict rules, invisible corridors, and shadow hierarchies. Each species occupies a precise time slot. Even darkness organizes itself. Among these nocturnal inhabitants is the civet, an agile mammal that walks among branches like a cat made of smoke. Its mottled fur mimics the pattern of diseased leaves. The civet smells before it sees. It feeds on fruit, small vertebrates, and even the famous coffee that humans learn to steal from its droppings. It is both a gatherer and a hunter, a diplomat of diet. Eating is a varied conversation. Its steps are silent thanks to flexible pads. It moves forward as if asking permission from each branch. It knows that noise at night is a dangerous signature. Stealth is a second skin. Further down on the damp ground, the reticulated python traces another kind of geometry. Its endless body glides unhurriedly, blurring the boundary between animal and path. The snake doesn't walk, it happens. It can grow to several meters in length and swallow prey that seems impossible for its mouth. Its strategy is not pursuit but opportunity. The hug replaces the teeth. Pythons know every burrow, every deer trail, every rodent route. They are living archives of the terrestrial night. Memory also lingers. In the treetops, another predator claims the spotlight, the clouded leopard. Irregular spots cover its body like maps of an imaginary country. It is the island's most secretive feline. Hunt with mathematical elegance. It moves through the branches using a long tail that acts as a rudder. It can hang upside down and attack from angles that defy human logic. The tree is his private hallway. For him, the young orangutan or the unsuspecting monkey are real possibilities. The jungle teaches that no symbol is safe from hunger. Beauty does not grant immunity. The clouded leopard listens to the tarsier's movements, the civet's footsteps, and the murmur of the river. It constructs its routes by combining information like a military strategist. Hunting is reading the forest. This is how the night web is woven. The insect feeds the tarsier feeds the civet or the feline, and the remains nourish fungi that will return nutrients to the tree. Death works as a gardener. The luminous fungi appear like fallen stars. They transform rotten wood into new soil. Without them, the jungle would be a museum of corpses. Decomposing is creating space. Frogs add another layer of sound. Their choruses mark territories, announce rain, and confuse predators. Each species sings at its own frequency. Music defines maps. Nighttime storms change the rules. Water strikes leaves like millions of fingers, and many hunters wait their turn. Others, however, find an advantage in the chaos. The rain shuffles the cards. The tarsier uses the noise to get closer. The civet moves among thicker shadows. The clouded leopard waits for a mistake to slip on the mud. Opportunity also gets wet. In this dark hour, humankind becomes a clumsy visitor. Its poor eyesight and limited hearing make it an easy intruder to deceive. The jungle regains control. However, night is not the enemy of day. Both shifts are necessary. What one sows, the other reaps. What one hides, the other reveals. Borneo breathes in relays. Dawn begins with a tremor of insects. The tarsier seeks shelter, the civet returns to its den, and the leopard dissolves like a memory. The light changes hands. Invisible traces remain. A broken butterfly wing, a faint trail of blood, a fruit fallen from a night's run. Daylight will read these notes. The morning is a detective. We have explored the architecture of darkness and understood that the jungle possesses two superimposed cities. One visible and another that only opens with the moon. Both are needed to exist. But Borneo doesn't end with individual animals. There are collective forces that shape the landscape. Herds, flocks, colonies that move as a single organism. The next part will speak in the plural. We will descend into the clearings where the sambar deer marks trails, and into the sky where flying foxes carry seeds like living clouds. The story widens again. Because understanding Borneo requires looking at the small and the large, the claw and the wing, the tooth and the flower. No single fragment explains the whole. The jungle is a breathing puzzle. With sunrise, we close this nocturnal chapter. The tarsier becomes a statue, the civet a sleeping shadow, and the leopard a distant whisper. The story continues. In the next section, we will see how large herbivores and winged dispersers support the structure that allows all others to exist. Borneo still has many voices, and we continue to listen. The Borneo rainforest isn't sustained by fangs, claws, or primate intelligence alone. There's a slower, less visible force at work, tirelessly beneath the damp shade of the canopy. These are the patient builders, the silent eaters, the ones who transform matter into the future. Among them advances a massive figure with measured steps, its gaze always alert, the sambar deer. It's not a spectacular animal at first glance. It has no bright colors or dramatic cries. Its grandeur is understated, almost humble. It can grow to over 2 meters in length and weigh close to 250 kilos. Its thick fur retains the scent of mud and rotting leaves. Sambar doesn't conquer the landscape, it shapes it. It emerges before the sun's harshness. It walks along the banks of murky rivers, through clearings where young grass struggles against the shadows. Its wide ears twitch like antennae, and its nose reads the air with ancient precision. For him, the forest is a book of aromas. It feeds methodically. It chooses tender shoots, fallen fruit, and soft rinds. Every bite is an ecological decision. By uprooting a young plant, it allows another to grow. By chewing a fruit, it releases seeds wrapped in natural fertilizer. Eating is sowing without knowing it. When the heat becomes intense, he seeks out mud puddles. He sinks up to his chest and remains motionless. The mud cools him, protects him from insects, and heals small invisible wounds. Mud is their silent medicine. The males bear branched antlers that regrow each year like a biological calendar. During the rutting season, they clash with measured violence. The sound travels between the trunks like a brief thunderclap. Even the jungle has its duels. The females, on the other hand, build discreet families. The fawns remain hidden among ferns, learning the art of remaining unseen. The mother returns cautiously to nurse them. In Borneo, tenderness walks cautiously. The sambar deer is not just a consumer, it is a key prey species for larger predators. The clouded leopard, the reticulated python, and river crocodiles depend on its meat to sustain entire food chains. One body feeds many destinies. Its deep footprints fill with water after the rain. Insects are born there, birds drink, tiny frogs grow. Each footprint becomes a small world. The forest recycles even the footsteps. While the sambar trees shape the soil, another force works above. Dark clusters that resemble giant fruits hang from the large dipterocarps. Suddenly they detach, and the sky fills with wings. They are the flying foxes. These fruit bats have the largest wingspan of any bat in the world, up to 1.5 meters. They don't use echolocation like their insectivorous cousins. They rely on sight and a sense of smell that can detect distant scents. You can smell the trees before you see them. During the day, they form dense colonies. Hundreds of bodies sway like living leaves. They compete for space, fan themselves with their wings, and care for young that cling to their mother's breast. Even in a crowd, there is privacy. As evening falls, the exodus begins. Entire flocks leave their roosts, and the horizon becomes a dark river. They fly for miles in search of fig trees, durians, and wild mangoes. The night is an aerial garden. They bite into the fruit, swallow the pulp, and spit out the fibers with intact seeds. No other animal in Borneo disperses so many plant embryos in such a short time. They are professional sowers. Thanks to them, forests regenerate after fires and storms. They connect isolated valleys, restore abandoned clearings, and mix the genetics of distant trees. The future travels hanging from wings. Scientists call them keystone species. If they disappeared, dozens of plants would lose their main ally. The canopy would become monotonous, poorer, and more fragile. A bat can hold up a forest. Females give birth to a single chick per year. The young bird learns night routes, flower scents, and dangers in the sky. Learning takes place on the move. Flying is also a school. When they return at dawn, the ground is showered with seeds and pulp remnants. There, the work of the sambar deer, the bearded wild boars, and millions of ants will complete the cycle. The sky needs mud to exist. Thus, two worlds intertwine, the world of heavy earth and the world of light air. The sambar opens paths, the flying fox bridges distances. One writes roads, the other writes bridges. In times of drought, both become vital. The deer finds hidden buds and keeps the low vegetation alive. The bat locates the last flowering trees and spreads genetic hope. Resilience has many roles. The people of Borneo learned to read these signs. They say that where foxes fly in circles, there will be fruit, that where sambar deer gather, there is water nearby. Wisdom is also observation. But the balance is fragile. Roads cut off air routes, hunting reduces herds, logging eliminates trees that took centuries to grow. Human time runs too fast. Even so, as long as they remain, the rainforest retains the memory of how to heal itself. A single flying fox can plant hundreds of trees in one night. A group of sambar deer can restore a clearing in just a few years. Repair is possible. Borneo proves that ecological heroes don't always roar. Sometimes they chew silently or flap their wings unseen. Greatness can be humble. The forest functions like a city without a mayor. No one gives orders, but everything fits together. Fungi decompose, insects clean, birds connect, mammals fertilize. Cooperation is an ancient law. At dusk, when the sambar dews in the river and the foxes take flight, the invisible seam of the ecosystem is revealed. Ground and sky converse. We have observed the engineers of mud and the architects of the canopy. What remains is to understand how this fabric copes with the pressure of a world that surrounds it and needs it. The story is nearing its end. The next part will look at the whole picture, the threats, the resilience, and the future of this island that still breathes like a gigantic animal. The journey continues towards the end. In Borneo, life isn't organized solely around what you eat, but around what might eat you. The forest has a second language, older than birdsong and deeper than the murmur of the river. The language of fear. It's not a hysterical fear, it's a useful, precise, almost elegant fear. A system of signals that dictates movements, schedules, and distances. Thanks to it, the orangutan chooses the right branch, the sambar deer the safe pool, and the proboscis monkey the exact moment to cross the water. Danger is an invisible architect. Among the masters of that language, one figure stands out, seemingly drawn with smoke. He may not have the fame of the tiger or the stature of the lion, but on this island, no one rules with more subtlety: the clouded leopard. Its fur isn't spotted, it's cloudy, irregular shapes that break up its form amidst filtered light. As it moves through the branches, the human eye doubts what it sees, and that doubt is enough. Camouflage is not disguise, it is disappearance. Unlike other big cats, the clouded cat is almost a carnivorous primate. Its ankles rotate with extraordinary flexibility, and it can descend from a tree headfirst as if defying gravity. The jungle taught him to think vertically. It hunts monkeys, civets, young wild boars, and when the opportunity arises, unsuspecting sambar deer. It doesn't need long speed, it needs a single perfect second. The attack is a short phrase. For the orangutan, this feline is an ancestral shadow. Adult males may confront it, but females with young avoid clearings and build higher nests when they sense its presence. Motherhood also involves calculating risks. The leopard does not roar to announce its presence. Its power lies in silence. Only sometimes at dusk does it let out a deep call that travels like a muffled thunderclap. The forest learns to be silent. However, it is not the only predator that writes rules. In the damp soil, coiled like an endless idea, moves another authority, the reticulated python. She can grow to over 6 meters tall, and her body is a map of rhombuses and lines that mimic roots. She doesn't chase, she waits. The world passes before her like a confident parade. Patience also has its scales. When it attacks, it does so with brutal economy. It coils, presses, gauges the prey's breathing, and adjusts its force to the enemy's heartbeat. Killing is a hydraulic calculation. Pythons guard trails through sambar deer groves, roosting grounds for flying foxes, and riverbanks where proboscis monkeys drink. They are dark nodes in the food web. The ground remembers every prey, and further down, where the water thickens and the logs float like ghosts, reigns the saltwater crocodile. Heir to a lineage predating mammals, it views the present with the eyes of the past. For him, time is vast. The long-nosed ones know it well. That's why they cross at an angle, why they slap the water before diving, why they listen to the sentinel birds. The river requires protocol. These predators don't just take lives, they distribute behaviors. Thanks to them, herbivores move, seeds travel, and trees aren't devoured to exhaustion. Fear creates opportunities. Imagine a Borneo without hunters. Sambar trees would decimate the new growth, monkeys would multiply unchecked, and the riverbanks would lose their biodiversity. The forest would become a single, monotonous note. Harmony needs teeth. Even the tiny tarsier participates in this symphony. Its giant eyes detect insects, but also keep watch for owls and tree snakes. It lives within a labyrinth of suspicion. Being tiny forces you to be attentive. The Malayan civet, with its bandit-like mask, patrols the ground in search of fruit and small vertebrates. Its droppings, rich in wild coffee seeds, perfume the human market. Trade is born from the stomach. Each species feels the pressure from another and responds with evolutionary creativity. Flying foxes advance their departure times when hawks increase in number. Bearded warthogs change their routes upon smelling leopards. The jungle is a tense conversation. The orangutan, despite its size, avoids the ground out of respect for these terrestrial beings. It prefers to expend energy hanging rather than risk its life walking. Prudence weighs less than the body. The humans who venture into the forest also learn this language. The guides recognize the leopard's hiss, the ripples in the water that betray a crocodile, the metallic scent of the python. Knowledge is a lifeline. On nights of the new moon, when visibility is reduced, fear grows thicker. Animals slow their movements, and the forest seems to hold its breath. Darkness has volume, but it's not all about persecution. Predators are also afraid. The leopard avoids the crocodile, the python flees from the giant monitor lizard, and all of them distrust humans. Power is always relative. This web of precautions creates invisible corridors. Areas where sambar deer graze peacefully, trees where foxes feel safe, riverbanks that long-nosed hawks prefer. Emotional geography draws maps. Scientists call it the ecology of fear. It's not poetry. It's living statistics. Where risk increases, vegetation changes. Where it decreases, new growth disappears. Emotions also sow seeds. Borneo has perfected this system over millions of years. Each ancient extinction left a lesson etched in bones and behaviors. Memory is biological. However, a new factor disrupts the established order: human speed. The noise of chainsaws, the illuminated highways, and domestic dogs introduce a fear without rules. The forest doesn't know how to translate it. Leopards lose continuous territories, pythons find easy prey, crocodiles collide with boats. The ancient balance becomes shaky. Modernity has no predator. Even so, the jungle responds with resilience. Where a clearing is abandoned, fig trees sprout. Where a river is cleaned, the long-nosed hawks return. Where hunting ceases, the sambar deer return. Life rehearses again. Understanding the language of fear is understanding the heart of Borneo. It is neither an idyllic place nor a green hell. It is a demanding school. Only those who listen can approve. We have explored the realm of the engineers and now that of the hunters. It remains to be seen how all these threads will come together in the face of the approaching future. The story continues. In the next part, we will enter the territory of invisible forces, diseases, climate, fire, and the ever-closer relationship with our species. Borneo still has secrets to tell. Borneo is not just a place. It is a centuries-long conversation between water, wood, and flesh. An organism so vast it forgets its own size, and so ancient it has witnessed the birth and disappearance of continents of foliage. But even green empires have a fragile pulse. What we have explored so far, thoughtful orangutans, long-nosed amphibians, cosmic-eyed tarsiers, patient sambar deer, sowing flying foxes, and predators that teach prudence are not isolated chapters. They are cogs in the same biological machine. If one fails, everyone hears the crack. The weather is the first invisible storyteller. The monsoon rains set the rhythm of the year, deciding when dipterocarps bloom, when durian fruits swell, when rivers become roads or walls. Borneo breathes in seasons. When the rains are delayed, the forest changes mood. Flying foxes must fly farther. Sambar deer approach villages. Orangutans descend to the ground with an unease that betrays difficult times. The drought makes everyone vulnerable. Fire, once a rare visitor, has learned new ways. It penetrates drained peat bogs, advances beneath the leaf litter like a faceless animal, and awakens in columns of smoke that obscure the sun. The rainforest can also burn. Diseases travel as easily as seeds. Viruses that lay dormant in bats find unexpected bridges. Bacteria from livestock converse with wildlife. Biology knows no borders, and amidst these forces our species appears with a different sound. Straight roads cut through curved territories. Uniform plantations replace the ancient mosaic. Human geometry argues with the jungle. However, Borneo is not a passive landscape. The Dayak, Iban, and many other communities possess a knowledge that cannot be captured on satellite maps. They know when a river is sick, when a tree deserves to be left standing, when an animal signals change. Tradition is also science. Some villages practice shifting cultivation, rotating plots of land to allow the forest to heal itself. Others protect sacred trees where hornbills nest and flying foxes rest. Spirituality functions as a natural reserve. The young guides who accompany biologists today combine two languages, that of their grandparents and that of GPS. They point out samba footprints and at the same time record coordinates. The future speaks in a mixed voice. Orangutan rescue centers tell stories of scars and comebacks. Females who lost infants relearn how to climb. Wary males rediscover wild fruit. Rehabilitation is asking for forgiveness through actions. Scientists studying long-nosed monkeys discover that each group is a cultural archive, inherited roots, preferred trees, schedules passed down like recipes. Culture is not just human. The health of the entire forest is monitored in the caves where flying foxes rest. If their numbers decline, the fig trees silently tell. Bats are living thermometers. Even the dreaded clouded leopard has become an unexpected ally. Its presence indicates undisturbed corridors, ample prey, nights still governed by ancient rules. The predator also conserves. But the question remains, can Borneo still be Borneo in a century of haste? There is no single answer. Some regions have already lost the sound of the hornbills. Others celebrate the return of the samba after years of absence. There are rivers that are sick and rivers that are reborn. Destiny is written in the plural. The island teaches us an uncomfortable lesson. Nature is not fragile because it is weak, but because it is complex. Breaking a thread is easy. Understanding the whole requires humility. Caring requires learning. Let's imagine a possible dawn. Flying foxes return laden with seeds. Sambar deer leave fresh footprints in the mud. A young orangutan builds its first nest. And the proboscis monkey crosses the river with the style of an ancient swimmer. That day still exists. Protecting Borneo isn't about freezing it like a postcard, but about allowing it to continue changing in its own way. Let natural fires be brief. Let rivers breathe freely. Let secondary forests have time to grow old. Conservation is organized patience. The children who gaze at the island's sky today may not remember our mistakes, but they will remember whether we were able to correct them. They will inherit more than wood or minerals. They will inherit stories, and stories need a setting. Each species we encountered is a word in a larger language. The orangutan speaks from memory, the proboscis monkey from the border, the tarsier from the night, the sambar deer from the ground, the flying fox from a distance, the leopard from balance. Together they form a living phrase. When a tree falls in Borneo, it's not just a tree that falls. It's a library of insects, a bridge for monkeys, a tower of seeds, a map for bats. The forest is inhabited architecture. Perhaps that's why the island moves even those who have never set foot on it. Because it hints at what we could be if we listened more and shouted less. Borneo reflects us. The journey we began among mountains and swamps has taken us through murky rivers, luminous treetops, and nights with enormous eyes. We have seen how life invents extravagant solutions to continue being life. Creativity is not just human. Now the story ends, but the jungle continues. Tomorrow, a flying fox will plant a tree that will bear fruit decades from now. A sambar tree will clear a path where a new forest will grow. Time works without applause. If these words made you hear, even for an instant, the heartbeat of this island, then Borneo has already traveled a little further from its shores. Attention also protects. Let the leopard continue drawing clouds in the shadow. Let the long-nosed bird cross rivers like a living bridge. Let the orangutan think silently about the branches. Let Borneo keep thinking. Our journey ends here, but the responsibility has only just begun. Like this story, if you believe the rainforest deserves witnesses, subscribe for new expeditions, and share this tale with those who don't yet know that their own lives breathe a little thanks to these forests, because defending Borneo isn't about saving a distant place. It's about protecting the source of the air that gives us life. Until the next journey.